following is a presentation of the GERE Radio Network. Ladies and gentlemen, it's your boy Perez. You're listening to the Better Live Than Dead podcast.
And with that, we welcome you to Better Live Than Dead, the podcast, episode 143.
143. Bro, 143, that's pretty awesome.
It is wild. I was thinking about that actually before I went breaking the fourth wall here. You know, I went to the bathroom, and I'm thinking to myself, man, 143 episodes. Crazy. Never thought we would have gotten that far. And I mean, there's more than 143 episodes, but the fact is, this podcast is numbered 143, titled the NFL Preseason Wrapcast. And we're here. We're going to talk about football exclusively here on the Better Live Than Dead podcast today. Now, before we get started, before we introduce ourselves, this podcast powered by Better Live Than Dead and the GERE Radio Network. You can hear us on betterlivethandead.com, Apple Podcasts. I know John will be happy about me saying that. Google Play Music, iHeartRadio, Spotify, YouTube, and wherever you can listen to podcasts, you get this podcast. And if not, let us know and we'll make it happen there. Also, real quick, Better Live Than Dead, now an affiliate of Rise Supplements, a gym supplement brand based right out of Buffalo, New York. Head over to Rise Subsets, RYSESUPPS.com, and use the code RWOLFE9510 to receive 10% off your first order. With that being said, I am Ryan Wolfe at Wolfe BLTD. Joining me on the IndyCard Media Hotline, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Perez, Luis Perez at MRLG Perez on Twitter. How you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing well. I'm getting over a cold, but I feel better than I have in a couple of days. So that's a good thing. Can't
look, and that's going to roll us right in. That's going to roll us right into our intro, man. It's Labor Day weekend today. It is Labor Day itself, September 2nd, a few minutes before noon on the 2nd of September, as I just mentioned the date, obviously. I'm very good at that. It's September. The temperatures in the Northeast are adjusting as such. If you're not listening to us in the Northeast, maybe you're in the South. You know, best of luck with the upcoming hurricane. Stay safe. If you're out west, it's very hot. If you're in the Midwest, I'm not really sure. I haven't paid that much attention to the Midwest temperatures. I just know yesterday it was 110 in Las Vegas, and I thought to myself, man, would I love to just melt my skin off in Las Vegas on this strip? But it's cold out. Toasty. Look, I wore joggers for the first time this season yesterday, and it's still technically summer, but we're having, I would say, unseasonably cooler weather right now as Labor Day weekend rolls through here, which would explain maybe why, Lewis, you got sick. But either way, it's football weather.
It's definitely football weather. I don't know if I would say 68 degrees is cold, but it's definitely cooler than it has been.
Well, when you're used to mid-July and August where it's, 80 to 85 every day, and then you wake up and it's 53 degrees in the morning and you're, there's dew on the ground and you're like, I'm not used to this yet. Like, it's going to be nice. Cheap plug here. I'm going to Hawaii in 18 days. And I was looking at the temperatures and they're expected to be in the upper 80s to low 90s. And I'm fine with that, because then you come home, you spend 10 days there, 9 days, 8 days, whatever. You come home and then you start the progression of, okay, now we're moving to October. Now we're moving to fall weather. Now we're moving to winter weather, and then there you're off and you're ready to go. But before we get there, before we get to fall, before we get to winter, before we get to the hellscape that is December, January, February in Western New York, the NFL regular season returns on Thursday night. The Chicago Bears hosting the Green Bay Packers, kicking off the 100th season of the National Football League in classic style. Instead of having the Patriots open at home on Thursday Night Football, the Patriots open at home on Sunday Night Football, and they're doing a premier old school NFL matchup, Bears and Packers, on I think NBC. So that'd be a lot of fun to start the season off. But Lewis, we got a lot to talk about today, so I don't want to pitter patter around and shake hands and hug and everything and exchange kisses on the cheek over here before we get the podcast started. I want to jump right into the three big things, because there are three very big things to talk about this week. It's been a few weeks since we talked football on the podcast, and a lot has happened. We've got some retirement, we've got holding out, and we've got some major trades that just literally happened a few days ago. So first off, we're going to start with Andrew Luck and his unexpected retirement. When he first retired, when the news came out, unexpected. When he starts talking about it, it makes a lot more sense. Running down right now, Luck has not been healthy. He had that shoulder issue that lasted for a few seasons, played through it, missed a full season with surgery and rehab, came back, and then this offseason, starting in minicamp around April-ish, I believe it was, there was a strange ankle injury. It started off, maybe it was a calf, maybe it was an ankle sprain, maybe it was a high ankle sprain. Then come to find out there's an issue, some sort of issue in his ankle that only affects like 10% of the population, where essentially you have a muscle injury that the muscle starts to become bone. And the only way to do it is to, I guess, work through it. I'm not really sure about that one, but surgery doesn't really resolve the issue. But either way, Andrew Luck said in his post-retirement or his retirement press conference, he promised himself he would not go through the same process with any other body part, any other injury that he went through with his shoulder. He said, quote, "I've been stuck in this process. I haven't been able to live the life I want to live. It's taken the joy out of this game. The only way forward is for me to remove myself from football." Now, I don't have the exact quote here, Lewis, but Luck did point out that he was doing the injury. Injury, surgery, rehab cycle where he would get hurt. He would rehab, rest, come back, get hurt, rest, rehab, come back. And he's just like, it just couldn't, it's exhausting. He couldn't do it. So on the surface, first off, thoughts on Andrew Luck's retirement. I believe he's 29.
Yeah, he was young. Relatively speaking, when you're a football player.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But, it was surprising. He was looking better than he had in a while. Of course, I didn't know about the ankle injury. So it's one of those things where when you say something like, "I'm not living the quality of life that I want to live," that's serious and that's understandable. And you play in a sport where the chances of you getting injured are extremely high. A lot of these players probably play injured more than we know.
I would say you're more likely than not to get hurt in football for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And so I feel bad for the Colts organization. It looked like he was going to have a year that was more on the healthy side for the first time in a while. But I don't feel bad for Andrew Luck. You got to make that decision. You got to do what's best for your well-being. And over the last several years, there's been tons of lawsuits about what happens post being an NFL player and how your health can possibly deteriorate and the brain issues. Fortunately, he didn't really have many concussions. His issue was shoulder. But as someone who's had shoulder surgery, that's a tough thing to go through. The owner of GERE Network, John Cimino, he's been through shoulder surgery. He can tell you what that's like also. It's debilitating. You can't really do anything especially if it's your primary arm, I couldn't do anything with my right arm for almost 4 months. And that sucked because I'm a right-hander. So it was surprising, but I'm actually glad that he did it now before going into the season, getting hurt again, and then just going through the cycle. I'm glad he realized he had to do something for himself and to make his life better for him and, and his family. So it was surprising, but I'm glad he did it. I'm glad he didn't go through the cycle again. I hope his ankle gets better.
I mean, looking at it, he could most certainly come back. There's no doubt about that, but it definitely sounds like that football injuries and just the game itself suck the life and suck the happiness out of him. And when it comes to just breaking it down past a football standpoint, just a mental health standpoint, when life is not enjoyable and you're essentially going through the motions just to kind of live your life, it's not fun. So I can't even begin to imagine. I mean, he walked away. You have to just to think about this. He came off statistically one of the best seasons of his career last year. The Colts have finally built a solid team around him, a solid offensive line, because that's been the problem most of the time, is that the Colts neglected to protect him. I mean, when you look at starting in 2015, September 27, 2015, he sprained his shoulder. November 8th, 2015, he lacerates his kidney, plus he had multiple muscle pulls in his abdomen. And all this information to hat tip SB Nation for throwing this together a couple of years ago. He has a frayed labrum in the preseason, September 1st, 2016. January 19th, 2017, shoulder surgery. October 2017, he returns to practice. November 2nd, 2017, he gets placed on the IR. November 5th, he's advised not to throw for 2 to 3 months and focus on rehab. May 23rd, 2018, he attends team activities, doesn't throw. June 12th, 2018, he throws. And then he finally returns. He plays his first regular season game in September 2018 for the first time since January 2017. And then now again, he goes back and he gets hurt again. And it doesn't make sense for him to stick around. I mean, looking at it, this really is something that kind of falls on the Colts as much as it does anybody else, because
absolutely,
you have to protect your star quarterback. And the thing is, Andrew Luck's not a dumb guy. He went to Stanford. I believe he graduated from Stanford. He's made upwards of $100 million. He doesn't need the money. Like I said, it might be something where he takes a couple years off. He feels great. He misses the game. He comes back and, no harm, no foul. But I would say, Andrew Luck gave the Colts everything he possibly could and then some. He gave up his livelihood. He gave up his personal health, his mental health, everything to try to be the best and to win with that football team. And like I said, it says a lot that he's walking away now instead of trying to come back, going through rehab, sitting on the IR, whatever it may be, letting that black cloud hang over the team. He said, I knew it was time and I'm not going to stick around. And the other question I had for you on this, Lewis, is that we heard from Rob Gronkowski a couple days ago. And we know that Rob Gronkowski plays a physical brand of football. Physical.
Yeah.
He said he kind of pointed to the same thing Andrew Luck did, where Gronkowski, when he's now a CBD salesman or a pitchman for CBD stuff. He says, quote, "That's why I took the action and got away from the game. I would not lie. I was walking around and my mood swings were totally up and down. I was aware of what was going on with my body and my mind. That's why I had to walk away." He went on to say, "No lie. I felt my head. I used to have liquid. My head used to be thick. My head used to be thicker, like a centimeter of liquid in some spots. I'd feel it and be like, what the heck? You could put indents in my head." Now, with stuff like this coming out, players getting smarter, injuries becoming more noticeable, and everything's kind of on the surface. Where back in the day, a guy would get his bell rung, he'd come out the next play. You've got guys missing multiple weeks because of concussions, because, again, it's hard to hide stuff these days because we know the inherent dangers of football. Do you think that this is a trend that will continue, though, with younger players retiring due to injuries and just an overall increased awareness of what actually is happening?
You know what? I think it is. I don't think you're going to see players playing as long as they used to. I mean, what was it, last season? We had a guy get drafted and then quit because he was concerned about his health. I mean, so I think it is. I think it's definitely something you'll see more and more of. You're not going to see a lot of the Tom Brady's, who's, how old is Tom Brady now? 40, 41?
I think 42.
42. You're not going to see a lot of that anymore. Granted, the Patriots did a great job protecting Tom Brady. The Colts didn't do a good job protecting Andrew Luck, like we said. So I think more and more you're going to see a lot of these players get out earlier and earlier. You can make your money. You can retire and still live off that NFL pension. So I think it is going to become a trend.
I don't disagree. I think we've seen a lot of it, and it's gotten to the point that it doesn't make sense for players if you're not. The thing is, if you're not all in, you got to get out, because that's when you're going to get hurt. And I think that's like Andrew Luck not being 100% all in to get out. Absolutely. And it's not a bad thing. I'm not saying that as hey, be a man or get out, but I'm saying it more or less like it's anything in life, a relationship, work, your job, friendships, anything in life. If you're not 100%, you're putting yourself at risk, because I may not be 100% into something where, Lewis, you're 100% into it, and you don't know I'm not 100% into it. So it's that's the thing. Andrew Luck could go out there and be kind of like, meh, I'm here, I'm getting paid, I'm playing football, whatever is what it is. And he's just kind of lackadaisical and then gets hurt even worse. So it's one of those things where, again, kudos to Andrew Luck. I hope, we know football's a dangerous game. I personally took a break from football for a while because you realize how bad it is and how messed up it is. But because of Trust the Podcast, I did decide to come back to football, which, that is my choice. And also fantasy football. That's another reason I came back, because I have to be the best one in the family at fantasy football, the Wolfe Football League defending champion over here, if I may just give myself a pat in the back. But I think that football is obviously going to have to change a lot. We've talked about this, but the inherent dangers are becoming even more visible and more in the headlines because of stuff like this, because you get players like Andrew Luck walking away.
Right. And frankly, with Rob Gronkowski coming out saying what he says, I think he got out the game a little too late. Like,
I think so.
I think he was constantly getting injured. And he was another one, but his style of play was super physical.
His arm, he had, by the time he left football, he had like a cyborg arm. Right, exactly. But when you're that big and as physical as he is, you're going to get hurt. And so I think it would have been good for him to retire a season or two earlier. Granted, he did it and he got himself another ring, which is always nice. If you're going to stick around. But yeah, it's one of those things where if you're not in it, like you said, if you're not in it completely, why are you there? And Rob Gronkowski, real quick before we move on to the next topic here. Rob Gronkowski, first ballot Hall of Famer?
I would say for his position, yeah.
I think so too. We'll talk about that when the time comes, though, because he may be coming back. Who knows? I got a feeling that if it comes down to the weekend and the Patriots say, hey, we need you, he'll come back.
Right.
We'll see, though. Maybe. We'll see. Prove me wrong. But speaking of football players not playing, we move on to our second of three big things this week, holding out. We've got two big players holding out. First off, Los Angeles Chargers star running back Melvin Gordon still not with the team. The Chargers gave him the ability to seek a trade partner recently. More to me, Lewis, seems like them saying, look at, with the contract you want and the value you currently have, a team will not trade for you. But by all means, go find that out yourself. That's what it seems like to me. But Chargers GM Tom Telesco said Sunday afternoon, quote, when or if Melvin reports he'll play this season under his current contract and will revisit it after the season. So that one right there, to me, Lewis, I don't know if that becomes another Le'Veon Bell, but that definitely seems like we're looking at another situation where Melvin Gordon realizes, look at how good I am. I'm not, it's not worth it for me to go out there and risk having a career ending or a career changing injury or a career defining injury to play for however much he's playing for this year, which I'll go look it up here really quick. But I don't know. This one's interesting to me because I think he certainly deserves the money he's looking to get. He's 26 years old. He's coming up on, he's a free agent after this year, which also makes sense too. Because if he sits out the year, he'll be a UFA, move on and go forward from there. He's scheduled to make $5,605,000, I'll say it that way. So again, he's at the end of his contract. There's a 5th-year option available, but I have to presume that if he's not going to play, that's going to be that. Actually, no, this might be the 5th year. I don't know. I think this is the 5th year, and he's a UFA after this. So again, Gordon holding out to get to UFA healthy or to get paid now. So if he gets hurt, at least he gets paid. Kind of like what Todd Gurley did. Get paid now. Right. So if something comes up like arthritis in your knee or whatever it may be, you're taken care of. And I don't blame him for that.
To me, this is a tough one because he's a great running back. He's incredible. But he hasn't been the healthiest player either. So, do you deserve the money? I really don't know. Do you deserve money? But do you deserve the money you're looking for? I don't know because you haven't given me a full season.
I mean, that is very true. He's only played one season, his age 24 season, 2017. He played 16 games, had 1,105 rushing yards and 8 touchdowns on 284 carries. So, I mean, it's not even like they're running him into the ground either. Last year, 175 rushes for 885 yards in only 12 games.
Right. So, I mean, if you give me a full season and you prove your worth, then we can talk. But if you keep getting injured, I'm not going to pay you that money you want just to have you sitting on the sidelines.
And to point out too, it makes sense for him to come back because it says here that Gordon has the same report. This is from September 1st, so yesterday. The same report here says he's been allowed to seek a trade. Tom Telesco playing hardball, won't budge. It says here, though, he's currently set to make $5.605 million, like we mentioned, under the 5th-year option. Of course, if he's able to find a team willing to trade for him, they have to offer compensation the Chargers want. Gordon does not have too much leverage here right now, since if he doesn't play this season, his contract from this year would simply toll to next year, and it would push everything back a year. So it definitely seems like this would probably be a very smart decision for him to come back at some point in time, even if he sits out as long as he can before his contract can't toll this season. Just sit out and then come back when necessary and then go forward from there.
You know, what I would like to see a player do is come back, put up some spectacular numbers, prove your worth, and then go get paid. At that point, I got no money paying you that money, you know. But all these holdouts, man, they bother me sometimes, especially the one we're going to be talking about next. But I would like to see Melvin Gordon come back, light the NFL on fire, run through everybody, and then go get paid.
Well, and I understand. I mean, I think of it this way. I get that players, because we've seen players get hurt, and then they have to essentially cash in when they can. And looking at the next one that obviously you're quite interested in, Ezekiel Elliott, Dallas Cowboys star running back. They've reportedly gotten closer to a contract extension, but as of Monday morning, according to Cowboys insider Mike Fisher at Fish Sports on Twitter, the Cowboys have elevated running back Jordan Chun from the practice squad to the 53-man roster. Cowboys head coach Jason Garrett said within the last hour that it is not too late to integrate Elliott into the Week 1 game plan, but that is, quote, hypothetical, obviously because he's not in the building. Now, right now, looking at Zeke Elliott's contract at 24 years old, he was set to make, it looks like, $3,853,137, so $3,853,137 in a base salary this year, and it looks like he had a signing bonus of a little over $4 million. And then next year, the player looks like the 5th-year option is available for him at a little under $9.1 million. So right now, Zeke Elliott, 24 years old. I am on, for me personally, I am on the Zeke Elliott train. I'm a very, very, very big, firm believer that this kid has got to get paid for one sole reason.
You know what? Go ahead.
I was just going to say, for one sole reason. The Dallas Cowboys, with Ezekiel Elliott in the lineup, are a Super Bowl contender. I wouldn't say a favorite, but a contender. Out of the lineup, the Cowboys can win the division, but I don't think they go much further than that. Looking at his statistics, in 40 career games, I don't believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's either he is first or damn near close to the top. In 40 games, Zeke Elliott has rushed the ball 868 times for 4,048 yards, 28 touchdowns, 1,199 receiving yards out of the backfield, 135 receptions and 6 touchdowns. Right now, extrapolate that. If he stays at this current pace, Ezekiel Elliott, I mean, it's only 3 years. He's only 24, but he is for sure on a Hall of Fame pace. So I understand. Absolutely. I understand with Le'Veon Bell, with Todd Gurley, with Melvin Gordon, and now Zeke Elliott, all asking for their paydays because we see what the NFL does to running backs. I mean, I saw it perfect. I know I'm outside looking in here, but playing fantasy this weekend, I did a draft. And you look at the names of players, there are, your top 4, 5, 6 running backs, and then the rest of them are just all brand new names. Most of them are young, cheap, because what NFL teams do these days is they'll go out and run them 300 times, chew them up, spit them out, and then if you want to go pay them, you can go pay him. But, I mean, the Cowboys are definitely, I would say, getting their money's worth with Ezekiel Elliott, and he just wants to be paid as such. That's all.
You know what? In this case, I completely, 100% agree with you. Pay this guy, because your team is a much better team with this guy in the back. I mean, he's been their go-to. Whenever they're in a tight spot, they go to Zeke. He gets them out of the tight spot. So no, I absolutely agree. I think,
and I'm just confirming here through Sports Illustrated really quick. I'm sorry, Lewis. He does, since entering the NFL in 2016, Ezekiel Elliott does lead the NFL in rushing yards.
Yeah, I mean, pay this man. Jerry Jones, open up your wallet, write a check, pay this man. He's worth it. Jerry is desperate to win a Super Bowl before he kicks the bucket. And he's not a spring chicken, so he's closer to the end than the beginning. I mean, which technically we all are. But at the same, the same point is, pay this guy. He could be your franchise running back for the next several seasons.
Just to put it into perspective, Lewis, playing, let's see, what's 30, 40, so that's 40, and then we'll do, what's 48, right? 16 times 3 is 48, correct? I'm not the best at math here. Yeah, 30, 48. So in 48 games, and I'm just doing this to get some people's mouth drooling or whatever it may be. As we talked about, Hall of Fame pace. It's hard to say because football is a lot different, but looking back to Emmitt Smith's first 3 seasons, in 48 games, he ran for 4,213 yards. In 40 games, 8 less games, Ezekiel Elliott ran for 4,048 yards. So if we were to push that up a little, depending on he was averaging right now 101.2 yards per game. Add 8 more games in, that's 810 yards.
Right.
Ezekiel Elliott is on pace right now to be the next Emmitt Smith for the Dallas Cowboys. And Absolutely. it's one of those things where it's like, I mean, it's really early to say, but it's like looking at Saquon Barkley, same thing. The running back, I think, is a dying breed in the National Football League, at least right now. You get those really, really, really talented running backs, but a lot of teams are building the run and gun. We've seen that. You have a good quarterback, good wide receivers, you're fine to go. Awesome, great. But looking at guys like Zeke Elliott, Saquon Barkley, stuff like that, these guys can make your team, they can push you to the next level. I look at Todd Gurley as one of those as well. I mean, we'll see how healthy he is this season. But you have a guy who can take a division-winning, playoff contending to a Super Bowl contending team, just like that, just having him there. And it makes everyone's job easier. So if the Cowboys come out and don't get me wrong, the Cowboys right now have almost all the leverage. But say they go out on Sunday and get maybe not steamrolled, but maybe they struggle against the Giants, because I don't think that they'll lose to the Giants. I don't think the Giants are all that good. I don't think a lot of people think the Giants are good. But if rushing comes out, if the running backs come out and struggle, or the passing game struggles, or the offense doesn't look like it's in sync, that all starts to roll back to Zeke Elliott.
Right.
And at this point in time, he's one of the best in the league. Pay the man. That's all. Get the deal done. Extend the contract. Keep him until he's whatever, 28, 29, 30. And then revisit it. Keep him around.
Exactly.
Run him for what he's worth. And then go from there.
Yeah, and he's not afraid to mix it up. Like, he's not afraid to run up the middle. He doesn't have that fear that you see some of the other running backs have. He'll plow people over if he needs to.
He can get to the next level and he can accelerate, which is crazy. Yeah, watching him play is nuts. And I've paid a lot more attention to Zeke Elliott just because, I mean, this year it's different, but personally, I had him in fantasy football. Been watching him. Right. Keep an eye on him because you watch those 4 p.m. games, which the Cowboys are almost always on, and you can just see the talent that this kid has. But if they want to play hardball, and it may come out to it may hurt them, because I mean, a lot of people, and I'll ask you about this later in the podcast, Lewis, but a lot of people have the Cowboys making a deep run this year. Without Zeke Elliott, it's not happening. I can tell you that it will not.
I
happen.
agree. I 100% agree. Pay him.
Now, I want to move over to our last of three big things, the major moves, the big major moves that, excuse me, the big major moves, I had to clear my throat there, that kind of shook up the NFL ever so slightly. First off, the Seattle Seahawks make, I would say, one of the largest moves we've seen in a while to elevate and strengthen their defense. They go out and acquire defensive end Jadeveon Clowney, who's on a franchise tag, for a 2020 third-round pick, defensive end / OLB outside linebacker Marcavius Mingo, and linebacker Jacob Martin. Now, Clowney did sign his franchise tender. He will report to Seattle, and I don't know if he'll play this weekend, but he'll be ready relatively soon. Seattle agreed to not tag Clowney after the season as part of the as part of the deal. Now, there is a long-term deal is a possibility after the season, though, because he can't sign since the franchise tag extension, all that stuff.
Right.
The extension window is gone. It was gone a long time ago. But Seattle was reportedly one of the teams he wanted to play for, so you have to think that if it works out well this season, he'll stay in Seattle. Now, speaking of Seattle and their defense, they'll be a nightmare this year. Looking at a tweet on August 31st from Field Yates, at Field Yates on Twitter. Seattle's front seven. Check this out, Lewis. Bobby Wagner, a 4-time All-Pro. Jadeveon Clowney, a 3-time Pro Bowler. KJ Wright, he has 4 100-plus tackle seasons. Jerron Reed, he had 10.5 sacks last season. LJ Collier, a 2019 first-round pick. And Ziggy Ansah, 48 career sacks. What they're doing in Seattle, rebuilding that defense on the fly, they're going to need all the help they can get, because that NFC West is tough. The NFC is tough, but if you can take some pressure off of the offense, that's probably going to be a very good thing for the Seattle Seahawks this season.
Their defense is going to be frightening. That's the only really way I can describe it. I mean, to have that type of lineup with those type of players, with those type of stats, I mean, you're looking at 2 players that have a whole bunch of sacks. Reed in 2018 at 10.5, and Ansah's got 48 career sacks. That's a lot of sacks. So your QB, when you face these teams, is going to be in big trouble. He's going to be seeing the lights a whole lot from his back. So, yeah, I mean, KJ Wright, I mean, he's a beast. What can you say about him? I mean, he's a beast. And we all know what Clowney's capable of. So
it's one of those things, too, where a lot of people say, Jadeveon Clowney hasn't been as great as one might expect. But when healthy, he is damn good. And we saw what J.J. Watt can do for Clowney, what Clowney can do for Watt. Think about this. It's never in the National Football League, it's rarely about one player. But if you have a collective group of really good guys who can take the pressure off each other, you have no problem there.
Right.
I mean, 1 second here. John is texting me. I think we might have a special guest here joining us towards the end of the podcast.
Okay.
I think Seattle's defense, again, they need to be good, if not great, because you look at San Fran. San Fran's got Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, I guess, you know what? That actually brings up a good point here. I wanted to mention it.
And Jimmy's probably healthy, too.
Seattle is a team that we expect them to be okay. But looking at how disheartening does it have to be if you're, I mean, Arizona is going to be bad. They probably know that. But looking at the 49ers, they get Jimmy Garoppolo healthy. They're doing a great thing with Kyle Shanahan down there in Santa Clara, or Santa Clarita, whatever it is. And I think it's Santa Clara. And then the Seattle goes out and gets Jadeveon Clowney, and it's kind of like, it feels like a 2-horse race in the NFC West right now.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, those 2 horses would probably be the Rams and the Seahawks.
Yeah, well, in looking at, I mean, I did a prediction on BLTD 142 with John, who I believe John will be joining us here in just a moment on the IndyCar Media Hotline as well. I feel like the Rams are probably going to win the division and Seattle gets a wild card, but it's going to be good and good. It's not going to be, one's 11 and one's 13-3, and then one it ends up being, 9-7. I think they're both going to be really good. And I think everyone just heard that. We've got joining a special guest on the IndyCar Media Hotline, the man who runs the place, John Cimino at the JC Money. How you doing, John?
Oh, hello. I'm going off the rails on the crazy train right now.
I love it.
That's why I'm calling from my phone and sounding like a phone call instead of from my microphone and sounding like I'm right there in studio with you. But anyways, I'm good. How's it going, Ryan?
We're doing well. We're just talking about the Seattle Seahawks, and we're trying to stretch it out till you join because I want to get your thoughts on what Houston's doing and the Dolphins are doing. But let me run down this really quick here.
Who's weird?
Oh, who do you think?
It's me. What's up, son?
Hey, what's going on, Lou?
I'm chilling, bro.
It's a family reunion here on BLTD.
Are you at the shop?
No, we're closed today.
Oh, all right. Well, Labor Day, I guess.
But I can always swing by later with some cigars and some liquor.
Maybe that depends on the new lady friend, but we'll.
I can bring her a cigar too.
You know what? I think she might like that. We'll talk off air about that.
Cool.
Now, John, we just finished talking about Jadeveon Clowney going to the Seahawks, but looking at what Houston did after that, they go out and they again. It seems like Houston's playing Madden since they fired their GM Brian Gain in June. But they go out, they acquire left tackle Laramie Tunsil, wide receiver Kenny Stills, and a 4th-round pick in exchange for 2 first-round picks, a 2nd-round pick, cornerback and special team star Johnson, I believe it's Batamosi, and then offensive lineman Julian Davenport. Now, guys, the Dolphins are fully engaged in tank watch at this point in time. I mean, it's.
And you know who I feel bad for the most is Josh Rosen. Like people can say whatever they want about him and his attitude and how he was kind of coming into the league. But in his first 2 leagues, he had a dog crap program in Arizona, and they did nothing for him. And then they trade him to Miami, and then Miami just freaking dumps everybody, and there's a dog crap program there too. Like I feel bad for that kid.
Absolutely. I don't disagree with you on that one. Looking at this here, the one thing I want to mention to you guys, because we all have talked about this a million times, and it's mentioned a ton the past few days. It's nice in the National Football League. It's nice to have a lot of picks. Don't get me wrong, because you get a lot of shots at the dartboard. But as we've seen with the Cleveland Browns a few years ago, remember when they had a bunch of 1st-round picks, bunch of 2nd-round picks, and they blew it all? You have to be able to have, good talent evaluators and the ability to draft effectively. And I'm not too confident that the Dolphins have that right now. So, they may come out and say, yeah, we've got, X amount of draft picks, but you actually have to execute on those picks.
Well, no. And with all due respect to our resident Cowboys fan here, the Dolphins and Dolphins fans are like the Cowboys fans of the AFC. Like they think every year is their year. They think that every move they make is the smartest move that's going to set them up. And then unlike the Cowboys, whom happen to make the playoffs every now and again, the Dolphins bottom out and do nothing like every year. Seriously. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that what's his name? What's his owner? Stephen Ross? Is that his name?
I think so.
That clown shoe. He doesn't know what he doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't care. It's a money thing, and the Dolphins really have been at the bottom of the barrel for much longer than Dolphins fans have wanted to admit. And this is more of the same. Like they can acquire everything that they want. They got another coach off the Belichick tree in Brian Flores. And unlike the Parcells tree, the Belichick tree has not really been that good that branches off. But if you ask any Dolphins fan, hey, they trust in Flores and Flores is good because, whatever. The Dolphins are in rough shape, and they're going to be in rough shape for a while. Now, they could be tanking for Tua, and that's fine. But if they have nothing around him, Tua's going to be another Josh Rosen.
Exactly. The cupboards are bare. I mean, granted, looking at Laramie Tunsil, he was by no means an all-world left tackle. Pro Football Focus last season ranked him 36th among tackles. So he's good, not great. But Houston clearly going all in because they have to protect their young quarterback, Deshaun Watson. But looking back at Miami, I mean, they're going out, they're trading good players, they're cutting good players. it really does seem like they're trying to do all that they can to not be great. They may not specifically be going out to lose per se, but they're definitely stacking the odds up against themselves. And like you said, John, if they're all in for Tua or Justin Herbert from Oregon, by all means, be my guest. But here's the thing. A good quarterback can only take you so far. If the rest of your team is terrible, your quarterback is only going to, maybe Tua comes in and they win 5 games next year. Okay, well, how are you going to make up the other gap for winning 10 games to make the playoffs?
One quarterback is not going, again, to your point, 5-6 wins. But let's use the Cowboys as an example. How were they able to? How was Dak Prescott able to make the absurd request of allegedly $40 million a year? Well, I'll tell you why. They have a good supporting cast around him. They had Ezekiel right now, asterisk, because we don't know what's going on with that story, but Ezekiel Elliott in the backfield and just a dominant offensive line to protect Dak Prescott and give him the opportunity to take the time to find his receivers, whatever's open, or make a decision. If you don't have that, you have Josh Rosen at Arizona last year. So you can tank for whatever quarterback you want, whatever star quarterback you want. And same thing with, not necessarily the Bills and the Jets tanking for Darnold and Allen respectively. They kind of, sucked. They played well enough to suck to get to those picks. But the Bills and the Jets kind of, they realize that they have studs there with those quarterbacks or potential studs, and they look to build around there, and that's what they're going to do. But if the Dolphins do what the Dolphins have been doing, which got Tannehill excommunicated from Miami, and look at and Tannehill, prime example. They were like, whoa, Tannehill's not our guy. Tannehill this, Tannehill this. Then he's going to. Then he goes to Tennessee, and he was legitimately challenging Mariota for his starting job there because they got a better offensive line and they got better weapons around him than he ever had in Miami. And again, to your point, they could tank for Tua, they could tank for whomever they want. Brett Favre could come out of retirement and want to sign with the Miami Dolphins. They got nobody around him. Brett Favre is no better than Geno Smith.
I mean, I don't disagree with you. They have to start, and that's kind of,
I also dislike the Dolphins heavily, so I'm going to be very, very anti-Miami for now.
Well, I was going to say, I
like the city of Miami, but the Dolphins can piss off.
The city of Miami is beautiful, but the team is terrible. Looking at them again, I think, first off, I think Ryan Tannehill is going to be the starting quarterback of the Tennessee Titans before the end of the season, because you want to talk about overrated. Marcus Mariota, not terrible, but he's not great, and they could do a lot better.
Disagree there.
They could do a lot better, and I think especially with his injury history, he'll end up playing at least a couple games, I think. But back to the point about Miami, Brian Flores, after everyone was talking about tanking, and he says, it's extremely sad when people say that it is, quote, extremely sad. But the Dolphins aren't going to win a lot of football games this year, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 at most. So looking at them, I mean, they know they need a quarterback. They know they need a good quarterback. They haven't had a good one since Dan Marino, let's be honest. So at this point, I mean, it's kind of like what the Bills did. You have to go out and get that guy. You have to get the guy you believe in. I mean, Brian Flores was very good defensively in New England, but he also had very good players defensively in New England. So they have to go out and build their team the proper way. And I guess if this is how they believe it's the way to start, they're probably 4 to 5 years away from being decent again. But the one thing, I want to speak on the Houston Texans really quick too. Looking at what they're doing, I think the kind of just free flow, Bill O'Brien doing what Bill O'Brien wants to do because they don't have a general manager. I think the trade of Jadeveon Clowney probably didn't need to happen. But if he's not going to play, you have to get something for him, I guess. But looking at what they did with Laramie Tunsil and Kenny Stills, it'll make their offense better. I mean, I believe Will Fuller is the one wide receiver who will likely start opposite of DeAndre Hopkins. And
Fuller would be the number 2.
He's been hurt before, so you put Kenny Stills in the slot, and then he can move over when necessary. But I mean, I think that it's them going all in because at this point, with Andrew Luck retiring, the Colts are still good. But how far can Jacoby Brissett take them? That's really what it is. So if Houston goes out and tries to beef up their offense, which they had to go out and get a left tackle, there's no doubt about that. They've damn near gotten Deshaun Watson killed on multiple occasions. I mean, the kid can do a lot, but he can only do so much, if that makes sense to anybody out there. So I think that you have to protect him. It's a high price to pay, and they're going to end up paying Tunsil even more, because at this point, Tunsil gets traded for a boatload of assets, which at this point, he's going to need a new contract soon. He's got all the leverage he needs at this point in time. So what's he going to say? You going to let me walk? So he knows, obviously, him and his agent both know that he's going to have to get paid at some point in time, and that time's going to be soon. So Tunsil will probably stay. He just has to money where his mouth is and go out and protect Deshaun Watson's blind side. And if they can do that, maybe Houston can go win 11 or 12 games, because their defense is good enough to do that. It's just, can the offense keep Watson healthy to keep that machine flowing?
Well, let's be honest. We talked about this earlier with Andrew Luck, about how no one was protecting him. Star QB, injuries. Deshaun Watson's already been injured in his career.
It does sound familiar.
It sounded very familiar. So you needed that guy to protect him, like you said. Now, will they win, more games? We'll find out. We don't really know at this point. I'm giving them like maybe a 6-10 record myself. But they have pieces that they can definitely build on, and if they can protect Deshaun Watson, he's an electrifying quarterback. He's got a great arm. He's got wheels. So I think he could definitely propel that team more so if he has better protection. And I'm looking forward to seeing, frankly, what he can do.
And looking just last season at Deshaun Watson, real quick, John, I'm sorry. 23 years old, 16 games. He was healthy. I mean, he was beat up, sacked 62 times, guys.
Right.
62 times last season.
Yeah,
he still managed to go out. He still managed to go out, complete 68.3% of his passes, 4,165 yards, 26 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. He ran for, let me get down to that. Rushing. Here we go. 551 yards, 99 rushes, 5 touchdowns. So he is, if he can stay healthy and they can keep him off the ground, Deshaun Watson is a clubhouse favorite to win the MVP, especially if they go 11-5, 10-6, 12-4, anything like that. But you got to keep him off the ground, because the more he gets hit, the more chance there's him to get hurt.
I feel like what's being missed in all of this AFC South talk, and I was the guy a few episodes ago on BLTD that went through my specific reasoning as to why the Colts were going to run away with that division. But with Andrew Luck being retiring and being out now, I don't believe in the Colts as much as I did. And naturally, everybody's progression is, going over to Houston now because Deshaun Watson, he's a sexy name and all that stuff. And if you, and absolutely right, if they upgrade around him and keep him upright, the sky's the limit for Houston. But don't sleep on those Jacksonville Jaguars and Big Dick Nick, because that dude, you can say his system QB fine, and he kind of fizzled out in LA and fizzled out in Kansas City when he was there. But he went back, he learned from all that, went back to Philadelphia, became a Super Bowl MVP, and became a very clutch player. And I think Jacksonville has a good enough team around them. They made it to the AFC Championship with Blake Bortles. And that squad that is there in Jacksonville, largely the same squad that contended with Blake Bortles. And Nick Foles is much better than Blake Bortles. So I wouldn't necessarily sleep on the Jacksonville Jaguars either in the South. And I hope that the rest of the league and the rest of the fans don't either.
Well, at this point, I can see the Jacksonville Jaguars winning the South. I think they have enough talent to do that. So
I'm with you there, because and it's because I don't necessarily trust Houston's ability to do enough to keep Deshaun Watson up off the ground. Whereas Jacksonville has that a good group of that core that contended for an AFC championship with Blake Bortles still intact. I think Andrew Luck was the deciding was the factor that swang the South, more in favor of Indianapolis. Take him out of the equation, and look, Jacoby Brissett. I'm not knocking him. There's just not enough on Jacoby Brissett out there to convince me that, regardless of the upgrades to the Indianapolis Colts, that he's the guy. There's just not enough out there on him. So, but there's a lot out on Nick Foles, just like there's enough on Deshaun Watson either. So it's going to be a toss-up between those two. But I'm with Lewis, where I could see Jacksonville punching people in the mouth and saying, "Hey, y'all forgot about us."
I definitely don't disagree on that one. I mean, my thought process behind it is looking at Nick Foles first off. I think the problem with Foles going from Philadelphia to Kansas City the first time is that Kansas City, if I remember correctly, it was very much a different offense for him. I think the offense that the Eagles run with the run pass option and all those other little gimmicks they have, it works for him. It plays to his strengths. It eliminates his weaknesses. That's why a lot of people think that Doug Peterson over in Philadelphia is like kind of an offensive genius, an offensive guru. He knows exactly what he needs to do to make it happen. So my thought is, down in Jacksonville, if you can kind of mirror that, things might work out well for them in Jacksonville. But it relies. Talking earlier about running backs, John, before you came on, another example, perfect example in Jacksonville. Leonard Fournette needs to be good again. He needs to get back to his game. He needs to get, 10, 11, 1,200 yards next season to take pressure off of Nick Foles. If Nick Foles doesn't need to be the guy all the time, that'll be great. Once you start relying on Nick Foles all the time, that's when I kind of get a little uneasy. And maybe, maybe his second time back in Philadelphia, winning the Super Bowl and kind of figuring out who he is as a professional quarterback, maybe that will help him more now in I would presume a different offense. But still, I think that the Jaguars may be a year away, but really anything, it's the South is wide open. I mean, I look back at our predictions, John, from BLTD 142, and my thought is that maybe Indianapolis goes from 11-5 to 9-7 or 10-6. Because I went from having Houston going split on the game where, Houston wins one, Indianapolis wins one, to now Houston just takes them both, which would then put Houston into the division. So again, I've got teams going 11-5, 10-6, 9-7 in that aspect. I know both didn't rank Jacksonville very high, but I certainly think that
mine was contingent on Jacksonville, losing both games to Indianapolis.
Well, you just wanted to. I think you just wanted to talk about Jacksonville, so you could say "Big Dick Nick" on the podcast.
That be that as it may, it's still, it still was a factor. The Andrew Luck dynamic was a factor because, again, he absolutely was a difference maker, and you saw that last season when he came back, and despite whatever was ailing him with his ankle, undiagnosed or unbeknownst to people, he still was, he went through that stretch where he was just unstoppable. And the offense did not allow, the offensive line didn't allow a sack for some 3 or 4 games, I think, which is unheard of. And those types of things matter. And Andrew Luck has a mind, a good quarterback mind. So it's hard to replace somebody like that. So when you take him out of the equation, yeah, absolutely. I see Jacksonville now at least splitting with them, if not taking both, depending on what kind of team Indianapolis fields with Jacoby Brissett behind center. Because if they're always playing catch up, that's going to be that. I think that's going to be bad for them. Of course, I could be wrong, and Jacoby Brissett could be the second coming, but I doubt it.
Absolutely. I didn't know if Lewis was going to jump in. This is the hard part about being on the podcast when we're on the phones and we're not at each other's.
Yeah. Well, as I am walking into the studio right now, so I'm going to actually set up the computer. So my voice while talking may change from phone mumbling to actual clarity. So, anyways, keep talking.
Yeah,
that works.
I was actually that's my bad. I was texting my wife. We got to be at my parents in 15 minutes. I was seeing if she was ready to go.
Did you say texting or sexting?
Texting.
Oh, okay.
Texting. I'm in my car. It'd be really weird if I'm sitting in my car doing the other thing.
That's for BLTD After Dark.
Yeah, BLTD After Dark, once the podcast goes off the air here. Let's see here. Now, as we move towards the end of the podcast here, I know John's going to jump on for only a few minutes here, which I feel bad about. But hey, we're looking ahead now, guys. It is, as mentioned, the Monday before the NFL season starts. And we're staring directly down the barrel of a slate of 256 regular season games and then a handful more of postseason games, all leading up to Super Bowl 54. It's the calm before the storm in the next few days, if you will. My predictions, Lewis, were all rattled off on BLTD 142, as were John's. Like I said, the only thing I really have changing is Houston winning the division over Indianapolis, but I still have the Saints over the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Now, while John gets fired up here, while John gets fired up here and gets into the podcast, Lewis, let's get your thoughts on who you have playing and winning Super Bowl 54.
All right, you know what? Listen, I'm going to change it up a little bit this season. You know, the last several seasons, the last couple years, we've talked about this. I've obviously picked the Cowboys because that's my team. And while I think they're contenders,
don't feel too bad, Lewis, because on my podcast with Brandon's had the Packers in every single year.
Yikes.
Okay, yeah, I don't feel that bad. So I can see, and I haven't really thought about it too much. I haven't done a breakdown of divisions in my head or anything and looked at it, but I can see the Chiefs facing the Vikings.
Interesting.
The Vikings I think the Vikings have a great squad. I think they're going to surprise a lot of people. I can see it being a Chiefs versus Vikings Super Bowl.
You believe Captain Kirk is gonna go past the 8-8 hump this year?
I can see it, man.
All right,
that's fair.
I can see that. I can see. Excuse me. I can see the Vikings going 11-5, man. Getting in the playoffs and they're making that run.
Wait, so you think you think they win the North, the NFC North, even over the Bears?
I do. Yeah, I do.
Oh, well, you know what? You've made a bold prediction before that almost came true with before the Houston Astros rose to the team that they are. And they were like bottom of the barrel, and you were like, I think the Houston Astros are going to go to the World Series, and then they almost did. And then,
right.
No. You said the Houston Astros, I think, and the Kansas City Royals that year, and it was the Royals.
Yeah. The Royals went on a run. Yeah, so I mean, I think the Vikings are confident. I think, what they do, they traded a draft pick away to get a kicker. So I think they got, pieces in place they think they can make a run with, and I think they're going to make a run. I can see the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl this year.
That's fair. It's one of those things. Can they? For me, I mean, like I said, I had them tailing off a little because even if Patrick Mahomes, and we talked about this last podcast, but even if Patrick Mahomes takes a couple steps back, he's still going to be
properly. Please address him
future
properly.
Future Hall of Famer Patrick Mahomes.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I mean, looking at just taking a look right now at looking over Kirk Cousins. I mean, last season they went 8-7-1. Their defense definitely took a step back. I don't know if you can really expect Kirk Cousins to be much better than he was. I mean, he completed 70.1% of his passes last season. 4,298 passing yards, 30 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions. That kind of feels like how he's going to be. I mean, looking at his average stats, I mean, it's just, it looks like his career percentage is 66.5% completion. Again, he's gotten no more than 30 touchdowns, which was last season. He went 29, 25, 27, and 30 in all the seasons he's been a starter. Never had more than 13 interceptions in a season. Never thrown for more than 4,900 yards, but normally he averages around 40 to 43. He went 41-66, 49-17, 40-93, and 42-98. I think, Lewis, if you want that prediction of the Vikings to go to the Super Bowl, I think Dalvin Cook is going to have to be healthy and he's going to have to be a threat out of the backfield. I mean, if again, it's all about taking the pressure off of somebody, and I don't think by any means Kirk Cousins isn't in that top echelon of quarterbacks that can take over a game, I think, and be a difference and be the difference maker. But he's definitely better than most, I would say. But if you can take that pressure off of him with a solid defense and, a great run game, I think your prediction could come true.
I believe it can too. I mean, obviously I have teams I'd like to see in the Super Bowl, and the one team I obviously would like to see in the Super Bowl is my team, but I just don't think it's going to happen. I can see the Patriots making another run. I just don't think they're going to get there. I can see the Jaguars making the playoffs and losing to the Patriots in a divisional matchup. But I'm sticking with the
Cowboys. The Cowboys and how well they do is going to be contingent on what happens with Ezekiel Elliott.
Yes,
we talked about that earlier.
Which, John, when you listen back to the podcast, I think you'll just be nodding and you'll agree with everything we said.
Okay, good.
Honestly, good. I'm being dead serious there.
Because Lewis, am I wrong? That team is a radically different team when he's not on that field.
Oh, radically different. You're 100% correct. Yeah, we talked about this earlier. That team is light years better with him.
John, just because I don't want to have Lewis repeat himself here, I'm just going to tell you this.
I'll listen.
I'm going to tell you this. No, hear me out. Okay. Hear me out. Some of the things that I got Lewis to agree to and to say yes to, and some of the things that he said about Ezekiel and the Cowboys, I think you'll be surprised.
Okay.
That's how I'm going to tease you.
I'm taking a more realistic approach this year.
For the first time, ladies and gentlemen, for the first time, 143 podcasts for the first time, Lewis admits to taking a realistic stance on the Dallas Cowboys.
I did. I absolutely did.
I mean, I got to be real. I think this is the first season that we've been podcasting that you haven't predicted the Cowboys either in or winning the Super Bowl, so that's huge.
It is huge.
Yes, that is huge. And Lewis, may I say, welcome to reality with the rest of us. Welcome to where I am as a Jets fan. So I
John, it is funny though.
Jets fans here, and it's funny. It always makes me laugh whenever people try to throw back like, "Oh yeah, well you're a Jets fan" or whatever, and I'm like, we already know we suck. It's the
but
thing.
Here's the thing, though, John. Here's the thing.
We come to the season hoping we get more than 5 wins. If we could get 6 wins, that's great.
We talked about this last week, not last week, last podcast. It was either during the episode or before or after. I can't remember exactly. But we talked about how a lot of people have Kansas City and Dallas in the Super Bowl, and neither of us could figure out why everybody was so high on Dallas. But the fact of the matter is,
I went to town on that.
Yeah, the fact of the matter is, people are high on Dallas. So the first year that people are like putting it in the papers and in magazines, what am I, 75 years old, saying putting it in the papers, but tweeting about it, talking about it, podcasting about it on TV and media, whatever it may be, saying, "Hey, I think the Cowboys got a good shot to go to the Super Bowl this year." And then we get in the podcast and ask Lewis, and he goes, "It's going to be the Vikings."
I'm using reverse psychology this year.
It's you know what it is. Lewis just out Lewis everybody.
Yeah, I would say so.
That's what I do.
And hey, just to let you guys know, about 20 minutes ago, the Kansas City Chiefs officially announced the signing of LaShawn McCoy.
Hooray!
Okay.
That'll be interesting.
That's great.
Hey,
that'll be very interesting.
2 minutes ago, the Dolphins just announced that they cut their longest tenured player, John Denny.
Yeah, that's not really sure what they're doing. We talked about that too, but we're not really sure what
They're tanking, Ryan. That's what they're doing. They're tanking.
Well, it's incredibly sad to threaten him with that. That's what the coach says. So, before we wrap it up, since we've got John here, I will just ask both of you.
Real quick, I'm going to throw this out there real quick. I think it would be hilarious if, Shady gets himself a ring. They can just throw it at Bills fans' faces.
I mean,
and you know what? Shady helped end the playoff drought. He's going to be well liked and well respected in Buffalo regardless.
I think at the end of the day, he's one of the best Buffalo Bills to play in my era. right now, but it just comes down to the amount of money that they would have owed him, the amount of money they saved, and they felt comfortable with Devin Singletary. That's all it is. And at some point in time, you got to pull the Band-Aid off, and paying him the amount of money you were going to pay him to play part-time, it just wasn't worth it for either side. So it seems like it was a surprise to see it actually happen, but going into the preseason, going into the training camp and all that stuff, everyone kind of saw it writing on the wall that as soon as the Buffalo Bills hit the field, that any day could be LaShawn McCoy's final day. So I'm just waiting for John to jump in.
I like that. I like that. We're talking about football, playing a football field. I like that writing on the field. That's pretty good.
Writing on the field. Yeah, now we've got John.
Perfect clarity.
And we've got John just at the end of the podcast. Before we go, guys, I want to give you both a little bit of a forum to anything else you guys want to chat about real quick before we wrap up the podcast prior to the start of the National Football League season.
I would just like to say, shut up, Ryan.
I'm glad you went out of your way to get on your computer just to do that.
You need to hear that in picture perfect clarity. Picture perfect clarity.
Picture perfect clarity.
Now, Lewis, as for you.
No, you know what? Listen, I'm looking forward to this season. I'm looking forward to watching the Oakland, to watching the Raiders just absolutely tank. I think they're going to suck this year. I'm looking forward to what's his nuts, the running back there that used to be with the Steelers, Antonio Brown. I'm looking forward to him doing nothing. I'm looking forward to some of the other storylines. I would like to see what the Seahawks are going to do with this new defense. I think they're going to be scary. I think the Eagles are not going to be as good as they've been the last couple of years. And as much as this pains me to say it, I'm looking forward to seeing what a 42-year-old Tom Brady could do, because he's still, he's probably the best quarterback to ever play the game.
Oh, he is, without a question. And I'm being a fan of a team in the AFC East, that's not the Patriots. I've gotten over all of the agita of the past 20-some years of Brady and Belichick. Like, at this point, I'm at the point where I am with LeBron James, where I'm just appreciative of what they bring to the table and their game. And because it's not going to be here forever, regardless. Father Time will catch up with Tom Brady, no matter how much he defies it. So yeah, I'm actually looking forward to seeing what he will do this year. Hopefully, 4 losses, 2 to the Bills, 2 to the Jets. But other than that, I couldn't really care less what he does. So I'm with you there.
That's how I feel about LeBron James. I could care less what he does. So.
Looking at, for me, you mentioned, Lewis, the Oakland Raiders, their final season in Oakland before they moved to Las Vegas. I'm very interested to see. I've been watching Hard Knocks and paying attention to John Gruden specifically, because obviously with Hard Knocks we get a little bit of a deeper look into how everything works around there. And it seems like if everyone buys into whatever it is that John Gruden is putting out there and he's selling, they'll be fine. I don't necessarily think they have the best talent, but they have arguably one of the best, if not the greatest, wide receivers in the game now in Antonio Brown. I think they've got a decent quarterback in Derek Carr, who can only be better with Antonio Brown there. If they can figure it out and all buy in, they'll be fine. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think they'll probably underwhelm. But again, it's one of those things where they're letting Gruden build his type of team, his type of football, and we just have to see if they can get that to adjust to the modern game and be better, be better than the modern game of that everyone else is playing, because I still don't get it. But Gruden's doing something crazy out there in Oakland, and kudos to him and kudos to the Raiders for, I guess, just doing whatever it is that they're doing. It's a lot of fun to watch.
It's going to be a fun season to watch. A lot of storylines.
As always, there's a lot of storylines, which is great. We know who's going to be good, we know who's going to be bad, and then there's going to be a couple teams that can surprise us.
That's what I'm hoping.
With that being said, John, you can catch John at the JC Money, Lewis at MRLG Perez. I am at Wolfe BLTD. We'll be putting out a new Trust the Podcast here sometime in the near future. I've got a special guest a Bills writer, joining me, and we will get that out here shortly. And we'll get this podcast out there shortly. And then we'll also be back here relatively soon. Hopefully we can get myself, Lewis, and John in person, all three of us together, to do a BLTD podcast here soon.
Oh, that would be wonderful. Hey, cheap plug, a brand new JC Money show is coming out on Wednesday, releasing two more unreleased, one unreleased and one re-released scam calls. For those of you that might be, now, again, I'm taking over the podcast here and I'll make it quick, but for those of you that are irritated with all of the daily robocalls that you may or may not get on your cell phones, I am the guy that tends to challenge those things, and by challenge I mean challenge myself to see if I can outlast the previous call, in terms of like the time, and often to hilarious results. So I have a litany of these calls that I'm going through the vaults and from a previous podcast and as well from just unreleased folders, and I'm finding them and I'm laughing and I'm sharing them with all. So a brand new one drops on the GERE Network airwaves this coming Wednesday.
Perfect.
Well, since everyone else is doing cheap plugs, I'm going to throw a cheap plug out there. Go check out Project Transformation on GERE Radio Network. It is a podcast documenting my weight loss, which, by the way, I'm down 58 pounds right now.
Yeah, buddy.
Oh, thank you very much. I've done several episodes with Ryan, so you can listen to us. And I have another one should be coming out this week.
And I try to produce it when I'm allowed to.
I appreciate that.
I'm always glad to help out. We're a team here. We're all work as a team, and everything works out well. With that being said, as always, we are Better Live Than Dead.
You're not.
That being said, we will catch you sometime very soon. Thanks, John and Lewis, for joining me, and we'll catch y'all sometime very soon.
Shut up, Ryan. The preceding presentation has been brought to you by the GERE Network.
Welcome, everyone. This is Sleazy.
This is the Fat Man.
And the world-famous R-rated podcast is now on the GERE Network. The Wrestling Show with Sleazy and the Fat Man is classless and raunchy commentary on the wrestling business today. Our multiple hosts, including Sleazy the Fat Man, Chip Willett, and NEW owner Travis Kenning, give a differing take on news, rumors, reviews, and previews of the entirety of the worldwide pro wrestling market.
We do what we want, we say what we want, and we don't give a at all. That's just the way we go.
Check us out on the GERE Network.